Tonight on Q2, devastation and despair. A look back on these haunting images 1 year ago today.
I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going to happen to me here. Am I going to wind up homeless?
As many build back up, some still struggle to see light at the end of the tunnel.
That is a big tree.
But now one woman, with the help of a community, looked to move forward by turning a symbol of all that devastation into something beautiful.
So they lived there. They were there the night of the flood. So there's been a lot of emotions through the process too.
The MTN News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this Monday. I'm Russ Riesigner. 1 year ago tonight, millions of gallons of water poured into area rivers and creeks, marking the beginning of what experts called a 500-year flooding event in south central Montana. Well, these are certainly scenes we will never forget. Houses ripped off their foundations and carried downstream, roads and bridges destroyed. Some lives were changed forever by these floods, and many are still greatly impacted today, especially those without flood insurance. Tonight, we start our team coverage with Augusta McDonald as she revisits one man who is still trying to figure out how to move forward.
It seemed like everyone in the world watched this video a year ago as Mike Kinsey's Park City home was crushed into the Yellowstone. The home was recently recovered and piled with other debris, but he still owes $250,000 on it. He paid thousands in flood insurance for decades and his home was zoned into the floodplain, but he won't receive any of that money.
The house hasn't moved, but they changed the floodplain.
In 2016, Kinsey's house was drawn out of the floodplain, and he says he didn't know. When he refinanced his house in 2019, he didn't have a policy.
So here I sit. I still owe the mortgage company $280-some thousand for a piece of property, the house that's no longer here.
And it all goes to show, without flood insurance, a safety net, rebuilding after this level of destruction is very, very difficult. So what does this mean for the average homeowner?
Always starts with the FEMA flood map and their zones that they publish semi-annually.
Riley Pariseau is an insurance agent with Stockman Insurance. He says you can go online anytime to see which zone you live in with several levels of risk to consider. If you're looking to get a mortgage to buy a new home or refinance your existing mortgage, flood insurance is typically required.
Other factors include what your elevation of your property is located in. If it's in a lower plane, obviously you're more prone to having flood impacts.
They also look at the total value of your property. But FEMA reports about 40% of NFIP claims come from outside of high-risk flood zones. So what does this mean?
When it comes to low-risk areas, obviously no one thinks that they're ever going to be impacted by a flood, right? But it can happen just like last year. And one important factor of flood insurance that people don't always understand is it's a particular type of policy that requires a 30-day wait period.
This means you can't get immediate protection as you watch the water rise near your home. Pariseau says interest in flood insurance comes with floods.
I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going to happen to me here. Am I going to wind up homeless? I can't see how I can possibly pay $250,000 for this when I was with no house on it. It's absurd.
In Park City, Augusta McDonald, MTN News.
And in the 365 days that followed, Montanans showed their resiliency and grit that we've become famous for, neighbors helping neighbors recover and move forward. Right now, Q2's Haley Monaco takes us to Red Lodge, where there's no vacancy for hard times.
For nearly 1 year, this property has sat mostly untouched and filled with debris, a reminder of just how devastating last year's floods were. But that soon could change. The water is long gone from the Rocky Fork Inn, but the damage remains. Trees and branches are still piled nearly to the ceiling. A home and bed and breakfast in Red Lodge lost in one night.
So they lived there. They were there the night of the flood. So there's been a lot of emotions through the process too.
Courtney Long is Red Lodge's planning director and the driving force behind a plan to help turn this symbol of the devastation into something beautiful.
There are grant opportunities and options for those property owners. And so we wanted to talk to the Bastions to just give them more of an idea of what an option would be for them.
The city applied for a hazard mitigation grant through FEMA to buy the ruined inn from the property owners, tear it down, and convert it into something for the community.
A part of that program is that it would be deed restricted and it would have to be turned into open space, so a green space, a park.
Anything that we can do to improve the infrastructure of Red Lodge, I'm all for it, for sure.
Scott Nance is the manager of the nearby Beartooth Hideaway, and he thinks the city's proposal is the best case scenario given the extent of the damage to the property.
I really think that we're ready to move on from it anyway. I think, you know, the flood it wasn't an easy time.
Long says they don't have a timeline yet for when the $1.7 million grant will be approved. The grant is a 75-25, meaning 75% of the project will be covered by FEMA, while the remaining 25% is covered by the city.
That is not the final agreed upon price, but that was the appraisal value. So we want to make sure they get a fair price for that property that's been in their family for decades.
Long says the Rocky Fork Inn is one of 3 properties she is currently working with, hoping to help out owners facing irreparable damage while continuing to repair the town. In Red Lodge, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
And remember to join us right after this newscast at 6 o'clock as we air a 1-hour special on these devastated floods. Troubled waters, the battled back, will be front and center in impacted communities as they work to rebuild. And if you can't catch the show tonight, don't worry, it will be available on the KTBQ streaming app for Roku and other devices. Meteorologist Keith Meyer joining us now. And Keith, what a difference a year makes. This is Red Lodge this afternoon, a very calm day for the most part, far from the devastation we witnessed last year. And the reason it is so different this year, you say it boils down to the snowpack.
It definitely was the snowpack last year that made the difference. And this image here, the red dots represent snow-tell sites that the USDA operates to get a handle on how much water is in that snowpack. And I just picked one, Monument Peak, as an example. And if we look at this comparison, the black line is this year and the red line is last year. Notice the black line at this date is down to 0. There's no snow water left at this particular snow-tell site today, but last year at this time there was almost 17 inches of snow water on June 9th, and about 3 to 4 inches of that melted out just in a few days, along with the rainfall on top of that. So it was the equivalent of a 4 to 9 inch rain event in the Beartooth.
During the floods of last year, community gathering places were vital, with several small towns almost cut off from civilization. The Fishtail General Store was one of them, with multiple bridges and roads washed out in the area and access cut off to Absaroka and beyond. The store served as a place for information and supplies. And Katie Martin made sure that store stayed open through it all. Tonight we kick off a new series here on Q2, recognizing older Montanans like Katie and other super seniors who are going above and beyond to serve their communities.
Super Seniors, sponsored by Master Lube and Adult Resource Alliance.
It's a place that has been part of the landscape here in Fishtail for well over a century.
Not a lot of general stores like this one, no.
This old store has stood the test of time, selling, as the sign says, a little bit of everything since 1900. It's a place Levi Finkston has been coming to since his earliest memories.
Especially in the little town of Fishtail, I think you can find just about everything you need here.
Just about anything you need. A little bit of everything. It's where you will also find Katie Martin.
This is Katie. Can I help you?
Anytime you come in, she's always got a friendly face. You can find her either behind the counter or in the bakery, in the deli. Always making it a friendly spot. Always going to say hi to you.
Way to go. Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate that. Let me know your opinion. And what I would do is I would bring one out and taste them both at the same time. Not the same time, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Try one comparison.
Lex, are you feeling any better? Where are you, babe? Okay, thanks, guys.
Katie first found herself in Fishtail back in the mid-90s after she and her late husband both retired and moved to Montana.
And looked at each other and said, this is it. That's how we ended up here.
But their retirement didn't last long. 2003, Fishtail General came up for sale. The old store was fading fast at the time.
And it's just something that needs to keep this town going. And Bill and I didn't want it to go away. We really loved the store. I mean, it had a historical value, and we knew absolutely nothing about retail. Zip. So it was quite the experience. But it grew, and, you know, if you have good quality, people are willing to come and see that. Plus, the ambiance is amazing.
It's a throwback in many ways to a vanishing piece of Montana history, the old general store, a place to get needed supplies and maybe also catch up on the latest goings-on.
It's the best butt warmer around. These are pictures of the store from about 1910 to about 1970. It's really designed to be kind of like a chamber of commerce and a place where if people need help, we can give it to them.
This old store is popular for a lot of reasons, and Katie, well, she's definitely one of them.
She definitely feels like she knows everybody, and if she doesn't know you, she'll make you feel that way.
I feel very, very blessed to be able to live here and work here.
And if you'd like to nominate someone for this segment, you can do so by clicking on the Super Seniors tab at the top of our website on ktvq.com. Still to come on the MTN 530 News here on Q2, School District 2's summer lunch program gets started today. We'll take you there and tell you why it's more important than ever. And later, it's Shrine Game Week, but before the big game, we'll highlight the amazing work being done at the hospital and the lives being saved. We'll be right back.
The MTN 530 News continues right after this.